All right, welcome everybody. So tonight we are going to discuss the Valuing Lives video, and then we are going to talk about that individualized transition plan, but more importantly, like the concept of person-centered planning. So that's one of those things where when I was thinking about the tutorial, I thought, there's a couple of things we just need to go over with everybody. And then if there's still, I have no problem meeting a little bit early on Thursday. If anybody still has questions, you can stay after tonight if you have questions, etc. But I think it deserves another class session for us. So, okay. Valuing lives. I even want to share screen. Yeah. Okay. And then of course I have to readjust because the minute I share screen, you go little. You are now big again. Amazing how we can change size that way, huh? Okay. So, the Valuing Lives video really talks about just participation in the community. And I think as educators, we talk a lot about inclusion, like as a place, like the inclusion room, the inclusion, this and that. But inclusion really is more of a philosophy, and it's more about, are you included in your community? Now, when young people are in school, that means the school community. It doesn't just mean, are you included in general ed, social studies, and science, but you have resource pullout for English and math and whatever. It really has more to do with, are you a part of the community? Are you a part of the school? Or are you seen as separate from? Are you seen as those kids in that part of the building? Are you seen as a general education student first? And if you do receive some supplemental services and support, so like say you do receive ELA in a resource class, you're still a general ed student first. Does that make sense? And for a lot of you that are teaching in like FSC classrooms, the idea of inclusion in the community is super important. One of the things that you will probably not be able to accomplish in 1 year is getting kids fully included, right? In every class. They're still going to, they're still going to have some pullout. They're probably going to be in an FSC room or a CBI room. But there are some things you can do. And so I think when we move beyond the idea of just inclusion as a setting and think about inclusion as participation, as being part of a community, I think we can make progress no matter where we are and what we're doing. So for example, let's just think, what could you do for students who are receiving their instruction? Because remember, special education is not a place. It's a set of services. You've probably heard that before, right? Hopefully you have. Special education is not a place. So when we talk about like the kids being placed in special education, no, they should be receiving some services. Where that happens, is not the definition of special education. And when we define special education, we shouldn't define it as, oh, there's different kinds of special education. There's FSC, there's CBI, So tell me some of the ways for students who are receiving a lot of their education in an FSC classroom, what could we do to facilitate community participation or that inclusion in a school community? What could we do? Anybody have some suggestions?
We could set up some kind of community events where, general ed and the FSC students kind of get together, like the buddy system type thing. Like they have the hiking events and things like that. Or you could like pair them up maybe to show them how to do something like grocery shopping or whatever. There could be something like volunteer opportunities and things.
Like a lot of schools, they have like the coffee cart or whatever that the CBI students, but how can we make that more inclusive? I'll give you an example. Coffee cart that I know how it exists at one particular school. It is a fantastic idea. And a couple of the teachers think that's really great because then they have, they have the kids who are in an FSC/CBI classroom, they do this coffee cart and everything. But what's really happening, the idea is great. The implementation isn't as inclusive as I'd like to see. So what happens is the kids go out. So let's say we have Avery as part of coffee cart and so is Joe. So Avery goes with his one-on-one to a classroom and stands there, and the one-on-one, the aide, whether it's an RBT, an EA, whatever, asks the teacher, because it's typically teachers who are ordering coffee at the coffee cart, right? What is your order? The RBT, the EA is doing all the talking. And so they take the order, they fill the order, but the kid is standing there with them. And then they go out and then they go to the next class. Then they go back to their classroom, fill the coffee order, and then they take it back. And again, the EA is doing most of the interaction. Joe, you've got your hand up.
We actually have a store where the CBI kids, FSC kids run it. So the general population comes in with their bucks rewards that they get from their teachers. They can go and buy snacks. So CBI kids, of course, monitored by their needs, are taking the orders, are finding the products and giving them back. So I think that's as inclusive I think as they can get, basically, without the adults doing it. But we have that going on right now.
And I like that because when you think about it, so your kids are at middle school. So, I could almost see the kids doing that. And then as they move, another thing would be a collaboration between like Stevenson and Roosevelt, so that when you do the handoff over to Sakota, then Sakota already knows what skills the kids have. And then coffee cart becomes a little more advanced. Like maybe in middle school, they're taking the orders, they're filling the orders. By high school, they're actually handling some of the money part and taking, like that. But the skills are being built. The other thing I'd like to see is, like I said, the general ed peers, because in this one I'm thinking of, it's only the teachers that are ordering. So they go in and then the EA asks this teacher, what they're ordering, blah, blah, blah. They get a paper and then they come back. This particular school also has a punch card. So you have to buy a $20 punch card and then the students punch each time. So there's never the money part. They just know that they have to take a $20 bill for the punch card. And then however many coffees you have, they punch a number. So that skill gets lost in that shuffle too. But you know what? I am not faulting those teachers at all because they found a way to make it work, because that is more efficient. You just punch the card, right? I mean, we can see it. We know how that goes. But, are those skills being built? And from what I understand too, then when they go back to fill the orders, the EAs are doing a lot of that too. And so at the beginning, and especially like, in middle school, maybe early on, maybe the EAs are having to even do some hand over hand. They may have to be doing some real supports, but there has to be that release. And it isn't just the EA talking to teachers and never including with the peers. And I think that's a real important one. Can the peers order something, which might be a stationary coffee cart that people come up to instead of going around all the classrooms and getting orders from teachers. Mary.
One of the schools that I was at, they had a store in their classroom and they got out at 2:30 and the rest of the school got out at 2. So from 2 to 2:30, it was majority, I think it was all students actually that would come. And there was a student who had was like a toy register, so he could punch in the numbers. So if it was like $2 and they gave him a 20, he could do the math. And the teacher was there to help him, and all the other students, like someone would bring it to them. And so it was a way for all of them to get to do it, but also do it independently. And it was majority peers coming to order the snacks and stuff. So
Yeah. Another thing that I learned about this one particular school too was not only were like the EAs, there was almost like one-on-one for every kid doing most of it, but Coffee Cart was consuming so much of their day that they weren't doing any academics really, because it was consuming so much. So I think that's something to think of too. I do want to give you another example. So like just participation in the community. There was one school and they had the medically fragile class. So these kids really had significant needs. A lot of them, had significant health needs. But they had, I know it was at least 3 students that went to hula class. And so like at the same time. And so the hula class, and it was however they arranged it. I think they went to like during 3rd period, these 3 kids went to hula class and thoroughly, absolutely enjoyed it. So while they were in hula class, they could sit there. All 3 of them did happen to use wheelchairs, but they would be there. They participated. There was the music. They could do hand movements. They could do what they want, but you didn't have the EA doing anything for them for that one class period, getting them there, but not, how it is like sometimes where the EA is doing so much for the students all the time. This actually kind of provided a sense of freedom. Another one, young boys, I think it was just one at that particular school, was really into cars and went to auto shop. So he went to auto shop. His peers put him in charge of the music because they did get to listen to music while they were working in auto shop and stuff. And he was fully included by his peers by them saying, okay, what are we listening to today? And they interacted with him and, so granted, was he actually working on, any part of the engine? Maybe not, but maybe there would be a part that like if some part was coming out and they needed to do something with it, that could be on his chair and he could work on it. There's lots of different ways that can be included in the community, the school community. Any other ideas? Anything else you've seen? I've given you examples, but you give me some. What other ways have you seen of including kids in their community?
I know for the Friday Night Lights, there's student coaches.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a good one. And Friday Night Lights, if any of you don't know what that is, it's basketball games. And they're inclusive teams, aren't they? Or are they just Sakota? You were going to answer.
Yeah, they have buddies. as like buddies to assist them in the game as far as
Oh,
facilitating the game. So I think one of the neat things about witnessing, because I went to a lot of the games, was allowing the students to generalize their ability to take instruction not only from the coaches and teachers, but from their peers as well.
yeah,
And being able to be included, learning social cues, learning
Mhm.
teamwork. And so that's generally what you want to do with them, is not only to open up being included so that they understand how to be a part of something aside from what maybe their teachers or their EAs. So it was so the EAs were in the crowd and everything, and it was really just the coaches on the sideline, and it was the buddies in the game, just telling them, you know, to get on defense, to pass the
Yeah.
ball in, to take the
Okay.
shot. So it was neat. Yeah.
And I think, I know that Roosevelt had a thing, up for a while about like inclusive sports. You know, so that they had, I know we've all heard of Special Olympics, but there's actually been criticism about Special Olympics that it's segregating. Now, there are some individuals, adults and young people, that flourish in Special Olympics, and they really, you know, they find community there, they find friends there, they find people they want to date there. You know, I mean, there's all these things, but then it's also, it's like similar to segregated employment in a way, because it's a segregated activity. So I know some schools have tried a lot with inclusive sports, so having inclusive teams. Yeah. Somebody else had, oh, it was Remy. You had your hand up. Yeah.
So I realized, I think what my kids do at the middle school that I'm at is more how we get into the community more than. So I'm at New Valley,
Mm-hmm.
and we're FSC, but we're also a little bit CBI. Um, and so every week we go on like a different outing, and most of the time it's like grocery stores, and they have like an assignment to do. So they have like find different items in the store, and then they like write down the price. But what I was gonna say is, if they do want to purchase something, they have their own money and do it themselves. So like they wait in line, they pay for it, and then we all get lunch afterwards, and they're able to like go up and order themselves,
Yeah.
and kind of figure out like, okay, I have $10. I can only spend $10 for lunch. What can I buy for $10? But that's
Yes.
more like us going in the community rather than the community, like community participation.
Yeah. I like the idea of anything that is related to community participation, because that's the idea that I think Wolfensberger was getting at with that whole valuing lives. Now, one of the things to realize is the whole Wolfensberger stuff, this principle of normalization. When this came out, so back to a little bit of history there, was when this was deinstitutionalization. Okay, so when we look back at institutions, we're all horrified. You've probably seen pictures of individuals in institutions. You've seen the inhumane care. Well, at the time, Wolfensberger was talking about some of the conditions in institutions, and even some of the like group homes and things that happened with the institutionalization. But one of the things he said, is that like human services, they provide physical care, a place to live. They need to also provide opportunities for growth and education. In a lot of the institutions, they stopped at physical care and a place to live. There wasn't opportunities for growth, for self-expression, for education. It was basic nursing care. without the addition of education. And, you know, we talked a little bit about like medical model and then to more of a social model. It was a medical model. People in institutions were considered patients. You know, you're a patient in the medical system, as opposed to this being, you know, a community or where you're living or where, you know, it was considered like, if you think about yourself as being, you know, in a care facility, but understanding that when you're there all day and all night, there has to be more to life than being a patient. There has to be part of just being a person. So they said that the manner in which many services for people with disabilities address the needs is different from the ways that ordinary people have those needs met. So the principle of normalization is not to make people with disabilities normal. So Wolfensberger, this principle of normalization, people criticized it because they said they were totally offended that, what do you mean principle of normalization? You're saying that people with disabilities aren't normal? And he said, no, that's not it at all. But they should participate in normal activities. So like the normal rhythms of daily life. So it's not trying to, like, it's not saying that, you know, and poor guy, you know, he said, no, I'm not saying that I have to make them normal. They're fine. It's make sure that that the ways people are living and supported are part of the normal rhythms of daily life. And these rhythms are flexible and authentic, not part of an attempt to replicate a real life based on labels. So these are just some clips from Valuing Lives. You watched the whole thing. So the normal rhythm of the day. So for example, for most people, you know, you may have a job, so you have to get up at a certain time, but there are some days that you can choose to sleep in if you want. You can choose to have breakfast at noon and have pancakes or eggs for dinner. You can choose to have those things. You know, it doesn't have to be. So he said that this normal rhythm of the day is that you have a reason to leave the house. There are not significant parts of the day that are just monotonous. You get to choose the activities, the meals, and you get to choose when to have it, what to have, and not when it's convenient for a staff person to do that. And at the end of the day, there's something that you accomplished. There's something that you did. Now, think about what we're talking about. He was talking about like care centers or institutions where you get up at a certain time, you know, you are bathed, you are fed, and then you are kind of put back in your room with not a lot of activity. So the person doesn't get to choose when they eat, what they're going to eat, what they're going to wear, when they take their shower or their bath, who they're going to interact with, because even that's controlled. So then the normal rhythm of the week, he said for like a normal rhythm would be that you live in one place and you work somewhere else. And then you may have hangout places somewhere else. You might have leisure experiences on the weekend and have something to look forward to. It's not every single thing in your whole life is this one place. So like at the institution or the care home, that's where you wake up. That's where you are in the middle of the day. That's where you are in the evening. That's where you are. You don't leave to go to work or to see other people or to do other things. And there isn't like the normal rhythm of a week. Think of all of you, your schedule. It's like, okay, on the weekend, I'm going to go do this. Oh, Wednesdays are a big day for me because Wednesdays I go to, you know, Pilates class, or I do this and I can go walking or what on these days. But if you think about just not having that choice. And then the normal rhythm of life, you know, holidays, seasons, you know, those normal growth markers of growth and change, have a wide range of choices, wishes, and desires, and live in a normal house in a normal neighborhood instead of a congregate setting. Now, given these here, I want to hear some of your ideas from, there were like all these gems from, you know, Valuing Lives, these people talking about it, like all these different people. But this is, this social role valorization is a concept that you have a role that is valued, and that everyone needs a role that is valued. So we all have different roles. Some are employment, but some are as a parent, as a daughter, as a son, as a cousin, and those roles have expectations with them that are valued. You know, maybe your role as a friend, your role as an employee, your role, but that people have important, valued roles. You are valued for what you bring to the table. So he said, like, if we're just integrated, like activities may take place in the same as typical activities, but no interaction with others. So this would be the argument against Special Olympics. So that there is participation. So Special Olympics would be, it's the same activities, but there's little or no interactions with typically developing people. You're still a segregated group. People live in specialized housing, have no control over ownership, and they're not even able to control who they have as a guest and when. And do you have guests? Can you invite somebody over anytime, when you want? And work is often tokenized or devalued. So there might be like the sheltered workshop where you're doing something, but a lot of times it's not authentic or valuable work. It's that, say, like tokenized. It's something to keep you busy. A lot of sheltered workshops, they'll have, and then again, like I say, it's so hard, it's not black and white. Going to a sheltered workshop in the day and then coming home to a home situation that is desirable is better than not having that at all. But what would even be better would be your own home, maybe with a couple of roommates, right? And if you have a care provider, that care provider can provide for a couple of people who are roommates in this house instead of like a facility. And you're actually doing valued work. Whereas well-included people are integrated in home recreation and work. So I want to hear, I should write it down. I'm going to, because this is where I'm going to insert a blank slide and give me a better layout here. Give me something where I can, there we go. Okay. Anything at all that stood out to you from Valuing Lives? Any quote, any concept, any certain thing that stood out to you from the Valuing Lives video?
I'll go. I think for me, just understanding what normalization is itself.
Okay. Expand on that a little bit, Barbara.
I know that some people there's disabilities that you can see by the physical characteristics, and then there's other ones you can't see. And it was just interesting how he explained about normalization in the film.
Okay, okay. So, anybody else? So some disabilities are very visible and some are hidden. And that principle of normalization that we just talked to, the normal rhythms of the day, that other people, that some people, I guess, take for granted, that, you know, how many choices and how many freedoms we have, that other people are not deciding when we eat, what we eat, where we go, when we go, those kind of things. So I'm going to do a couple more slides and then come back, then maybe jog your memory, or is everybody just being too shy? Okay, I'll go through this because we do want to have time. So one of the things is that valued roles for people. So most explicit and the highest goal of normalization must be the creation, support, and defense of valued social roles for people. Because if you do not have valued social role, people will be badly treated, without dignity, and rejected. This is when people are perceived as a burden. And how a person is perceived and treated by others will strongly determine how that person subsequently behaves. So if you feel valued, think about your own lives in situations where you actually felt valued. And think about other situations where you felt that nobody valued your contribution, that you were just kind of a hanger-on. You know, I think about different situations in my life where it's like, you know, my contribution here is not valued whatsoever. You know, I'm not seen as being able to make a contribution to this group at all. You know,
That's how I feel right now.
what?
Well, as an emergency hire teacher,
Oh,
I feel like I'm a non-human. Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror to make sure I'm not a ghost, because, you know, they ask for people to contribute during the meetings, but there's so many egos flying around, and they go, oh, he's just an emergency hire. So then I go down 2 tiers, and then they go, oh, he's special ed. Then I go down 3 tiers. And so I get at the bottom of the barrel. And so I just feel kind of exactly how you are talking right now.
that's, you know, that's really interesting, Avery, too, because again, you know, like, so if you do offer, you know, it's like those situations where, oh, well, what about this? And you see the eyeballs roll, like, who is this guy to even be making, you know, right? It's like, he has nothing,
Well,
nothing to
one of
tell us.
you know, one of the things that I noticed just being, you know, working there, was that the kids were getting zeros in the grade book, and that was really bringing down their grades. And in Miss Darazio's class, or Robin, in her class, she talked about that. And they start off with zeros at the beginning of the year. By the time they get to the end of the year, there's no way they can catch up, because they have 20 or 30 or 50 zeros, right? And so I brought that up, and you would have thought that I said nothing, it had no impact. It was just, you know, it just was not construed as something important. But it was something really important, because 60 of my kids are failing, not because they don't understand the standards, but because of a grading policy that is utilized as a disciplinary policy to punish them. So if they don't bring back the syllabus, they get a 0. If they don't get something signed, or if there's, it's like a punishment thing, rather than, okay, a standards base, because I know
Yeah.
that my kids got at least 70% of the standards, yet their grade is like 29, and we're trying to fight to get to like 50, and we celebrate if we get to 60, we're going to do a full on, happy dance, right? But that's not how it should be. I mean, kids in special ed, we're doing the UDI, we're doing the specially designed instruction. If they're getting at least 60 or 70 or 80% of the curriculum, they should pass, regardless of how many days they miss from school, or regardless of some of these other things. There's a lot of like these kind of policy things that I just know are making these kids not pass. Then they give up, then they become behavior problems, and
Yeah.
it's rinse and repeat the same cycle.
And I think one of the interesting things, so when we talk about, like achievement or something in student achievement, and they go to grades are not grades are not an indicator of learning. Grades are not an indicator of effective teaching. Grades are a really poor indicator of a lot of things, because in your grade, there's, participation and attendance, and if you brought back your permission form, and if you finished on time, and if, whereas one of the things I like in general ed, so much is dependent on the grade. At least in special ed, we should have data that looks at progress towards goals. And progress towards goals is important. You can show progress towards goals. You can show work samples here, beginning, midpoint, end point. You can show progress. You can have things like that, so that it's not just grades. I'm just going to do this one really quick. So just enhancing the role, the value of the roles a person has, is going to increase like their value, their opportunities, their participation. If a person holds a valued social role in society, they are going to be able to receive the good things in life that are available to that society. Whenever you are a second-class citizen, whenever you are perceived as not as valuable, then you don't have access to the good things in life, right? You don't have access to all those things. So the good things in life, home, family, friendship, just being offered dignity, respect, a sense of belonging, a voice in the affairs of the community, or even your own life, an opportunity to participate. So devalued individuals are more likely than other members of society to be treated badly. Therefore, being perceived as somehow different, deviant. We can see this socially valued role, if I go to big screen, people with disabilities, people of color, recent immigrants that are seen as less than. And whenever we see someone as less than, we can not afford them the same opportunities. We cannot afford them some of the same benefits. We can treat more badly, and then again, they're a burden on society. Okay, so social relationships matter. Attitudes and aspirations are shaped through our conversations and time spent with others. Relationships enable youth to make critical connections, and that's one thing I think as special educators, that's probably one of the biggest things that we can do is relationships matter. Relationships with the teacher. There's all this literature about kids who are at risk, if there's just at least one caring adult, one caring adult is that lifeline. Somebody who has built relationship, has taken the time to care, makes a difference in numerous ways. We're also doing students and in service if we don't talk about appropriate friendships and intimate relationships. I know a lot of kids with like intellectual disability, first thing, I want a boyfriend, want a girlfriend, want this, and it's like just talking about, and sometimes we just like blow that off. But it's like, okay, that's great, but what are those stages? You got to be friends before you're lovers. You know, you got to be, but think about social roles. And a lot of kids with disabilities see their peers in the hallways making out. They see their brothers and sisters getting married and going to college and all this stuff. And so if you ask them what their goal is, like asking them about what their goal is for the IEP, they're not going to say to pass the history standards. They're going to say that they want more friends, they want a relationship, etc. So, you know, relationships with others really does become the most important aspect of life. Therefore, we need to prepare students for successful adult relationships. This has been a really big issue for a lot of adults, is that kids with disabilities don't get any kind of sex education in school. So the sex education that gets provided for other kids is mostly biology. It's not a lot about relationships, unfortunately, but that's in the health class. And are our kids with disabilities included in that health class? And if they are, was that curriculum made accessible? Not really. So we have a lot of kids exiting school with no education about what's an abusive relationship. Everyone knows that if you are being physically hit, that's abusive. But what about emotional abuse? What about, like, you know, taking away privileges? What about like calling names? What about control? You know, those kind of things that can be in abusive relationships, like emotionally abusive relationships. Nobody's ever taught them about that because, oh, that isn't going to happen, but it can. You know, that's just such an important part of what we need to teach. We need to teach about what makes a good friendship, who's a good friend, and who's a jerk friend. Most of the general ed peers are having conversations about this in the hallway after school and sleepovers, and they're like, oh, he is being a jerk friend. You know, you don't have to put up with him. A lot of our kids with disabilities aren't getting that same social interaction. You know, they aren't learning like the norms of what's acceptable and what's not. You know, it's like, dude, he is taking advantage of you. They're not getting those conversations. We need to provide some of that. Jessica, you got your hand up.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
thing that I've noticed, especially for our girls in special education, is nobody talks to them about, I guess, like power dynamic relationships, or like, you know, there will be like a lot of teenage girls who will be talking with significantly older men, like in their 50s and 60s, and they don't understand, or nobody's told them what could possibly be wrong or off about that.
Yeah.
Or that it could be predatory, you know? So,
I think that's really important. And, you know, and a lot of times too, when you think about who's your circle, who's in your circle and who do you interact with? If all you're interacting with is teachers, EAs, etc., there's a lot of times when you get the young girl or boy who has a crush on the teacher, or a crush on the EA, or a crush on the cute teacher down the hall, or whatever. And talk about why that's inappropriate. You know, I remember we had a student teacher when I was in 4th grade, and oh my goodness. So I was in 4th grade. I thought he was like God, you know, it was just, and, you know, it was very, it's like, oh my goodness, do you really, he is this old. He is not interested in you. You know, he is not going to be interested in a fourth grader. And in fact, if he did, then that's illegal, that's problematic, and he's a criminal. But do we do that with a 16-year-old girl with Down syndrome? No, we just go, oh, ha, 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 isn't that cute? No, no, don't flirt with him. Oh, we don't just come out and say, no, that's not appropriate. I like the way you put it, Jessica, the power relationship. You know, and how many of us learned about like the power dynamics? Like if somebody is in a position of power over you, a boss, you know, that's not an appropriate relationship. Sakota.
Yeah, another thing also is just social media. I've encountered situations where students were solicited for nudes, videos.
Yes.
So they're not very aware of, like, once you put it on the internet, it can get circulated around, and so it kind of, there were situations where students that I know of have been solicited for those things, and it
Yeah.
just spread like wildfire. So yeah,
Oh, it is.
the-
And it,
yeah, it was a very sad situation, and you know, you can only do so much, especially if it happens off campus, you know, in their own
right.
personal time. So
And I
yeah,
think
so that's one thing.
the one thing we can do is actually talk about that somewhere in there. You know, I do know I have seen like either resource or inclusion classes talk about social media and, you know, protecting your identity. And so there's things like that talked about, but I'm not seeing that in a lot of like the CBI, FSC classes. And it's like, don't assume that these young individuals are not going on the internet and not befriending people, because when you want friends, you get friends anywhere. And so I just did a parent workshop this last Saturday on sexuality, and this poor mom, she was just at wit's end because her son met somebody at Special Olympics, and she said before that day was over. So she lives on Big Island. They came to Oahu because there was a big Special Olympics event. Before that day was over, they were already calling each other babe and honey and whatever. And then he sent her some pictures with private parts and all this stuff already. And it's like, oh my goodness. And she was like, how do I deal with this? You know, and so the poor parents at her wit's end. And, you know, he's like 27. But, you know, part of this isolation, if you're isolated, you get into more of those kind of situations. So what we can do is make sure that circle of friends and those natural supports, if you have those, and the mom, I get it too. She says, well, he doesn't want me talking to him about these things. Because she said, he doesn't want to talk about anything about sex with me. And, you know, she says, he doesn't want to hear what I have to say. And you know what? Think about it. Think about that yuck factor. You don't want your mom talking to you about this kind of stuff, right? It's like, ew. So you have to have the natural support. So one of these things we talked about is you need to have like an uncle, cousin, because there isn't a father in the picture, somebody like that talk to him about this, because mom, pardon my language, but mom talking to him about dick pics is not going to be very effective. You need somebody else to talk to him about that, right? So those are things that I think are really important. And there's a lot of academics that are important, but this is important too. So, you know, somebody actually could be happy if they didn't have a job, like a full-time job. Somebody could be happy if they didn't go to college. But you know what? Very few people would be happy if they had no friends or close relationships. So when we think about outcomes and when we think about goals and the really important things that we need to be teaching and doing for students, this just makes so much sense. And when we look at all those transition, models and that, the goal was employment, the goal was, and actually right now it is so big that everybody goes to college, no matter what, everybody's got to go to college. But I think we need to pay a little bit more attention to some of this. And there is nothing wrong with having some kind of friendship goals and just trying to do anything with some peer support programs, having more community inclusion on campus and off campus, just developing friendships. Yeah. We need students to become less reliant on school staff. I think embed opportunities for interaction in inclusive classrooms. They call it reverse inclusion, which is a kind of a weird name, but a lot of times there will be like a lot of the general ed kids, they can get like a leadership credit, or they have like an extra elective or something, and they come in and they act as the TA for a teacher. Have you seen that in the high schools? I've seen that in a lot of like inclusion classes. There's always this kid sitting over in the corner doing nothing. And it's like, oh, he doesn't have to do work because he's actually a TA for this period. And it's like, was he doing anything? Have him be a TA over, in the FSC or the CBI classroom, because he's doing nothing there in the inclusion classroom. He's sitting over there and it's like he's getting a credit to be a TA in math. Okay, so this is one thing, and this is, this is like one of my areas, but it ends up coming up so much in adulthood. I do parent workshops, I do staff workshops, and workshops for individuals with disabilities, because this becomes a super hot topic for adults. Just the right to be a sexual being, the right to be an adult, and actually be seen as an adult, that you are going to have the desire for close relationships, and not see that as either something cute or it will pass or it's just a phase. Just having reproductive rights over your own body, the right to refuse, the right to choose, and the right to learn from mistakes. Okay. So here's one stereotype out there that I think we all need to address. And I see this, oh, he's just a child in an adult body. He's not thinking about that. We don't need to do that. But I've seen this a lot with parents. It's like, oh, no, we don't need to do any kind of sex ed. He's not interested. It's like, really? It's just a phase. Oh, he doesn't really understand, being sheltered from the adult world. But the more isolated someone is, the more vulnerable they are. The more community integrated, the more integrated with peers, the more those natural supports. You're like uncle that gets to talk to you about sending those pictures instead of mom, or your friend or some, a peer, whatever. That adds to more empowerment. And it really is true. The more isolated someone is, and this refers to any population. When we look at survivors or victims, whichever word you want to use, of abuse, many of them are isolated. So in an abusive relationship, they're isolated from friends, family. Some of you may think about, we've heard about like abusive situations, like, military families, the wife or the husband is isolated from friends, family, support networks, and then there's a lot of stressors in the home. They're more vulnerable. They're much more vulnerable. And many abusers that use like power and control, the first thing is isolating the person from their friends and family. Because if you have friends and family support network, that person has less control over you. So it's like kind of coming between you and your friends, and, don't see your friends, don't see your family. And the more isolated the person becomes, the more vulnerable they are. Yeah. 77% of people with disabilities don't receive publicly funded residential supports. 23% do. 56% live with family. But there's another 44% that don't live with family. Anything stand out here? So I'm not just talking. Anything about this? 36% attend post-secondary ed. 58% have a paid job. This at least 76% had any socialization. That means 25% had no socialization. No socialization. Oh my goodness.
I feel like, not that it's good, but sometimes it's not surprising to hear that because a lot of kids do get most of their socialization from school. I know some parents are really good about, signing their kids up to do Special Olympics and stuff after school, but I also know that there are parents who don't do that for their kids. So
Yeah, and just, now granted, one of the things, if there's a big family network, that may be okay, because maybe there's enough weekend activities with the extended family that there's a lot of people around. But that's like, that's not everybody. We can't depend on that. So one of the things in your reports, which by the way, I am going to get to your community resource reports. I haven't graded them all yet, but dang, they were just due yesterday. Some of you turned them in early and I will grade them in order. I usually just sort it by when they were turned in and I just go by order of when they were turned in. But that's why one of the things is like those, just knowing community resources and knowing recreation. That was one of the categories. That's why it's important to know about those. Okay. I think it is late enough that you have this. Why is recreation important? I'm going to stop this. Stop share, because I want tonight. This was kind of an overview of why it's so important to be part of community, why it's so important to have natural supports, why it's so important to work on friendships, relationships, because that's so important. So in transition planning, we want to think about that. We want to think about who's there. So like part of that, who is there to support the person? But we also need to talk about that transition plan, because I said that's what we're doing tonight and that's what we're going to do. So let's take 5 minutes. I'm going to come back to the transition plan and then we'll be able to end tonight's session. So take 5 minutes. Let me get everything all loaded up for that transition plan and we'll take it away. My clock says 5:35. Come back at 5:40. Okay. All right. Okay. Kat, I did check. Kat, so each one of the individual assessments I had created that they were accessible, but that overall one wasn't. So it should be changed now. It should work now. So thank you for telling me that, because it's like all the permissions on each one of these linked files. So here we go. Okay, so we're going to go to La Lima. And one other thing I just thought of was I have an example for you here, but you know what? I am going to, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to look at for a couple of student examples from last year. Okay, so I created the example we're going to look at, but let me see if I can find a couple of other examples, or at least one other, but you do have this one. So right now I went to resources. We're going to scroll down to resources for individualized transition plan. And here is a folder of different assessments. Here is a folder of transition assessments for students with significant disabilities. This is something you should download onto your computer. You should have this. This is the DOE's post-secondary transition handbook. It also has some assessments in it. And in fact, I wonder if we want to, some parent surveys. This one was one I found from somewhere. Some middle school resources for those of you in middle schools, some examples, a thing about writing IEPs, and this one, is it still showing? Are you still seeing it? Or did it go? Do you see the State of Hawaii Department of Ed? Yes, no? Yes, you do. Okay.
Yes, we do.
Great. I want, because sometimes when I click to another thing, it goes away. Okay. So I highlighted some sections here. Okay. So here's your present levels of education performance. So assessment date, type, and the name. So most of you have probably put RIASEC and that's it. So we want you to do a couple more. And like I said, those are all about me things, they all work. Preference, interests, needs, and strengths in education, employment, and independent living. And then from this, the pins, we have this course of study. And then, like you say, I just highlighted the transition part in yellow. Okay. So this actually is something, even though you may be making up a student or whatever, this should give you the steps that you would take to fill this out. So I'm going to go ahead and close that one. We're back over here to La Lima, and we're going to go to Kainoa's transition plan. And right here, the entire folder for this, if somehow you can't get to it, it should be there. Oh, I already had that. Okay, are we looking at Kainoa now? You can see it? Beautiful. Here is the link to the entire folder of everything that's in here. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is number one for that assignment is describe the student. Okay, so he is we looked over this one other day, so I'm not gonna read the entire thing, but I want you to see. So, who is he? He lives with his parents. His ancestry is Japanese and Hawaiian. He does value and identify with both cultures. So that might be something, you know, all these things might add into things that become important to him in his life. His grandfather's close, so maybe grandpa needs to be involved in some of this somewhere. Probably the pre-IEP meeting, the MAPS planning, something like that. If Kainoa really wants to invite grandpa or brother, that would be okay. But typically there's going to be Kainoa and a parent, but these people, brother, grandfather, are going to be involved in that pre-planning meeting. So before the IEP, they get some input. Okay, so eligibility testing. So this is his background when he entered middle school. Now, some of you, you'll have the middle school part, but you won't have the high school part. Okay? So you won't have this. You will be during his 8th grade year, during his 7th grade year. That's where your plan may look different. Some of you, oops, it tells me to add a hyphen there. Some of you, they may be in 10th or 11th grade, so you will add what happened in middle school before he got here. He stated he doesn't want to go to college. He doesn't think it's necessary to become a YouTuber. He's never had any paid work experience. He's not volunteered. He has no experience in work other than cleaning his own bedroom. So here's some things that we can think of right there in talking with the family. Now, in the transition plan, you would not write, we'll clean his room, we'll do chores at home. Don't write that, but that's something that you would talk about in the pre-meeting. Like all the skills that he builds at home are going to be skills that he can say, I have. Does he have experience, you know, volunteering at a certain place? And so there he learned this and that skill. Does he have experience, you know, maybe he volunteers at the family's restaurant and he does busing or something. You learn a lot of skills that way. So this would be something that you would maybe talk about in the MAPS meeting. Or this might be something that he talks about on one of the All About Me. You know, like the skills. What do I do well? What skills do I have? Okay. So that might be something that ends up showing up on one of those assessments. Look at this. It's telling me I got to add stuff. Dang it. Okay. Now, if we look at this, it looks like an awful lot of assessments. But the RIASEC appears here and here. It's in 2 different places. Okay, it's a standardized assessment and it also does interests. You do have to have one standardized assessment for your IEPs. Okay, but that can also fit in other places too. This teacher interview and observation is just like notes that the teacher wrote. It's actually on one page. But let me just show you. So the RIASEC test, I filled out one. You will do this too. You're going to fill out a RIASEC. Okay? See? Very easy. And this RIASEC, I believe, is included in the folder of transition assessments here. Oh, do I not have the RIASEC in here? The RIASEC is actually online, DOE. Like the DOE has the online. Wonder, Do I need to add that? Okay. Priosec into transition assessments. Okay. I know I had a link to it when we did transition assessments, so it's on that PowerPoint, but you need it here, don't you? Yeah, Barbara?
It is Riasec the one that costs?
No,
Cause, okay,
absolutely
I,
free.
I must be thinking of a different one.
Yeah, that one is absolutely free. In fact,
Yeah.
all the ones right here are absolutely free. Now, here's just another assessment that is preferences. So these are like his work attitudes. I want to have a job I enjoy, I care about. So as you see, that's also a pretty easy assessment to do.
Mhm.
So now we go boom, boom, boom. Here's an all about me that he did. Well, I did it for him, but we don't have to. So these are things that he likes, dislikes. These are things that make me feel good. These are things that stress me out. So as you see, when we're talking about assessments, it's not like you have to administer 10 formal tests during the year. These could be classroom activities. This one, the teacher interview, you'll notice that the interview and the observation are the same document. It's just teacher notes. So I have a document for each kid in a Google document that I take notes in the year. I don't have that many. I interview him like I did it on this day. What do you enjoy doing in your spare time? What would you like to do when you graduate high school? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Now, he's in 9th grade. So I have this Google Doc. When he goes to 10th grade, I'm going to share this with his next teacher. Hopefully, like some of you who are in, CBI or FSC, you may have the kid for a couple of years. So what's even better is think about this. So this is 9th grade. In 10th grade, you start asking, what kind of experiences have you had? Have you had any job experiences? Have you looked into any, like what kind of jobs have you looked into? Is there anything you think is interesting? What can we look into? So this is your interview of him. The reason this is in here as a Google Doc is a lot of teachers, when you do that transition plan and you say, Kainoa wants to be a video gamer. And the first thing they say is, what evidence do you have? And the teacher says, he told me. But going back to the transition plan itself, which I've got all these things open, remember it had date, where it came from. So this is teacher interview, and you have something in writing. But see, this does not have to be, it doesn't have to be a major ordeal. It's just notes you're taking. And then, so like at the bottom of this, I might now go August 2nd, 2023, because he's coming into school and I want to ask him a couple other questions. And we just add to this. And think about what this is going to look like. Different observations. If you have this one document, so this was like year 1, then you add to it year 1 and 2, year 1, 2, and 3. But you have one document that follows a kid that has these notes. So it's just your notes. And so when we look about that, we go to this one here. Now, this is the one that you may not do every year, but this is the parent meeting, the MAPS planning. Please do that for this assignment. because I would suggest doing this like 9th or 10th grade, and then maybe again, you need to do it in 12th or something. But this is that family meeting. Okay, this is the one where, so I took notes on his meeting, his family meeting. Okay, so his care coordinator, Ms. Black, his parents, brother, sister, grandfather, and a neighbor came to this meeting. And this is that meeting prior to an IEP. Okay? Making action plans, there is a PDF of what it's supposed to be. But this is what the MAPS planning meeting should be. What is Kainoa's story so far? What's the dream? What are our nightmares? What are his gifts? What are his needs? Who can provide support, and what should we be doing now? So if you notice, this is copied and pasted from before. So in a way, you will not, on a real IEP, you don't have all of this. But if you had this documented in the maps, that'd be nice documentation to have. This is the exact same information. So the meeting with this parents here, like, who is Kainoa? Describe him. It comes from this meeting. It may come from the meeting and other things, you know, too. But this is where I got this. Okay. So I didn't do all the things about his earlier placements and everything here at the meeting. That's other information. So what's his dream? He said his dream is to have his own place and work from home as a YouTuber or a professional gamer. His dreams to make his own schedule and do things when he wants to and not when someone is telling him to do. Which sounds like a 9th grader, doesn't it? It's like, I'm gonna do this on my own. His parents stated they want him to pursue his dreams. His mother stated she'd like him to continue developing his skills in media, and perhaps making YouTubes and digital games could be a hobby. It could be more recreational. His father would like him to consider college and maybe take courses in digital media. His father dreams of Kainoa being able to support himself financially and being able to live independently. Now, mind you, this profile of Kainoa, this is a diploma track kid. This is not a certificate track kid. Okay, so it may be adjusted depending. So Kainoa's brother even chimes in here. Kainoa's brother says he should go to college, but, continue his interest in media so he'll have options. His brother wants to see him have a rich social life. His brother is really concerned about his friends. So see, parents didn't even mention, what are our dreams for Kainoa? Parents didn't mention, I want him to have friends and that, but brother did. Brother said, you know what? It's really important to have friends. And he would like to have friends outside of just skateboarding and video games. Like right now, he has some friends he sees at the skateboard park and video games. A lot of it is not in person. So his sister wants she wants to help make YouTube videos. So sister's younger and she's going to be his manager. Like, okay, he can be the gamer and I'm going to be his talent manager or whatever. She wants Kainoa to get a girlfriend, and she also wants Kainoa to get a driver's license. Getting a driver's license is a big issue for kids in high school. Many of your kids are going to want to get a driver's license, and it really depends. A lot of diploma track kids should be thinking about driver's ed. So anyway, she wants Kainoa to get a driver's license so he can take her places. Grandfather said he would like to see Kainoa go to college or at least some kind of training school. He doesn't think Kainoa needs an academic degree, but some kind of vocational certificate would be good. He would like Kainoa to have a job that could support himself and a family. He wants to see Kainoa married and have kids. Everyone at the meeting wants Kainoa to have a happy life where he feels like he's contributing to society, he's gainfully employed and integrated into the community. So what are the nightmares? Kainoa's mom and dad expressed skepticism about the reality of earning enough money to be self-supporting if he is a YouTuber. I tried to make this fairly realistic. I know if I was a parent of a kid who wants to be a YouTuber, that would be my first nightmare. It's like, how's he going to make a living on this? Come on, you know. So mom would like to Kainoa to think of it as a hobby while he pursues something a little bit more concrete. His mom's also worried that the skate park friends aren't a really good influence because many of them do not have solid career ambitions either. And several of them have serious girlfriends. So she said that she does not want to become a grandmother too soon, which could be a real concern of a family. So there was a mention of taking one course from Olelo. Olelo has a course where you can take like a course in media. And Olelo is the public television station, and they actually do have courses for kids where you can come and take a course. But the father says that's not enough. Taking this one course, that's just not enough. So anyway, the neighbor says he fears Kainoa is going to be cooped up inside, doing all this video game and that. He's not meeting real people. He needs fresh air. He needs to get out. The sister says he's never going to be able to move out of the parents' house. She's afraid he's going to be 40 and single and living in the basement. And Kainoa's brother said he's going to be just fine. Everybody give him a break. So naming the gifts. He's a really good communicator. He does have a few close friends, not a lot of them, but he feels like he's a good friend. He's a good, loyal friend. He would do anything for his friends. So that's a gift. That's a strength he has. He's a good friend. And he said if there's another meeting like this, he'd like one of his friends to be there at the MAPS meeting. He works well on group projects. He says he doesn't want to let other people down. So he always asks them to remind him. He's a good listener. He said he's easy to get along with. His sister even says he's a great artist. His parents say he's a kind and caring young man. So anyway, what are his needs? Who will provide support? What actions do we take now? So this is when he makes his PowerPoint. Okay. And then they say maybe he could get a part-time job at a skateboard shop or a movie theater just because he needs some experience. He needs to learn responsibility. He needs organization skills. Okay. And here's another template you could use to gather some information. And then these are just some pictures I got from the internet of if you wanted to make like a visual maps. Okay. So now that we've done his maps, we are ready to put it all together. Okay. So on the RIASEC, he scored highest in enterprising and artistic. People with a profile like this like working with others. This is what I usually see at the summary of results, this transition assessment. I will see this on the RIASEC, he scored this, and I have seen many times then copy and paste from the RIASEC into this section, and that's it. So what they would do, I'm going to go back up to the RIASEC here and show you what they copy and paste. And that's not what you want. So let's say he's enterprising and artistic. I have seen people go right here and like copy and paste that. People like to work in unstructured situations. They would be good in communications, cosmetology, and I've seen that copied right in. If you do that, make sure that there's other information too. Ooh. I went to the wrong one. You know what? I closed. Wait a minute. We're going to come up here. Oh, no, we did. We did good. Okay, there it is. Include a community presence map so we know what he does, what people's in his life, what does he do. So did we summarize it up here? Yes, we did. Okay. So as you look at this, each one of those assessments is a very small paragraph about what does it tell us. Okay. Okay, we did that. The futures planning, the family, that's the maps. So you can copy it right in, or you can do a link, either way. You can just put it right in like this. You can take this document, download it, and just use it as a template for your project. So now that we have all of this, here's my statement. The preference, interest, needs, and strengths. You don't have to do it in two places like this. You can do it just like this in one statement if you'd like. This number 4 transition statement is required. And then here's your 4, 5, and 6. Oh, goals, if you want to look. So, upon completion of high school, Kainoa will enroll and complete a media production course offered by Olelo. So we have not convinced him to go to college yet. So he does agree, and he says he'll do this one course. He does want to do one course. So that's his education and training. What will the teachers do? At this point for the education and training, there's no outside agency needed. These are related IEP goals. This is upon completion of high school, he's going to work at least part-time in the industry, media production. Okay, so here are like academic goals that support that. On the transition plan, you don't have to put the academic goals. That is just for this assignment. On the transition plan, you'll just do the parts in gray in the real world. Okay. Now, the last thing, your assignment ends here. I kind of wanted to see what would happen after, because I was trying to put different assessments. So these are different assessments you might want to think about. But again, this is like for the next year. You only have to do here. And you only have to complete 2 years. I tried to think of what would assessments look like over 4 years. So like this one, we're going to do the formal assessment. We're going to do RIASEC or a picture RIASEC. I want to do life skills, self-determination, and then this summary performance at the end. Okay. Now, is everybody pretty clear? I'm going to find another example. Is everybody pretty clear on the assignment itself? Okay. I was hoping so. I hope that was enough. Okay. Now, to these. Okay. On person-centered planning itself. This particular page has a ton of stuff. I'm actually creating a resource, Avery, maybe you'll get access to it, for Hilo Waiakea that has some of these resources on it. I am going to have it finished probably by next week, and I'll share it with all of you too. Yay, because you get access to it like guinea pigs. But I'll show you what it's looking like for now. So self-determination, person-centered planning, students who are self-determined participate in their IEPs, have better outcomes. We talked about this when we did the person-centered planning, the difference between system and person. So you've seen some of this. This is kind of a cool one, just like a continuum of student participation. The IEP takes place without the student all the way up to the student leads. This is a good resource. You guys have the one pager on the I am determined, but this whole page is really cool. So they have resources for youth, like you could have your kids go in here. So this is made for youth to explore. And then there's different pages. That's that one pager you had in your book. But the good day plan, you know, what would be my perfect day? A goal page. And then for educators, families. And then we started Malia the other day. You know what? I think it was it Asia or was it Remy that pointed out that Malia shouldn't be working in an office when all she wants to do, like she loves singing and dancing. Was that you, Asia, or was that Remy?
I think I talked about
I
it.
think that was you. Well, Remy, in response to you, we talked about like backwards mapping there. That one's where I have to put the timeline. I'm almost done, but so what they're going to do at each stage is, oops, where's my final one? These are just those templates. Have any of you guys used SlidesGo before? And they have all these pages. Oh my God. So then you replace them. Anyway, so what she's going to do is she's going to have an internship working in the office. These are all pages that they put in there. She's going to have an internship working at Diamond Head Theater in the office. So the first year after school, she's going to work in the office, in the library, at school, but then she's going to get an internship at Diamond Head Theater. Oh, I know where I put it. I did it on her PowerPoint. So remember we had Malia's PowerPoint. I have experience cleaning, filing, answering phones, and I got an office job at Diamond Head Theater. So Remy, that's thanks to you. All right, now it's 6:15. We need to go. if I offer, like if I come on early on Thursday, is there a topic or something that you want me to cover before we do education, which is secondary and post-secondary? Is there anything we want to do? Like any topic? I think you guys have it, like what you need to do for your project. What do we need to do to make sure that we end the course, come in, you have everything you need, you have everything, anything that you don't understand, we go over. I can do individual meetings, I can do a tutorial session before class. What do we need? Where are we?
I think I would like to have a independent meeting with you.
Okay,
Separate meeting with you maybe on Thursday
okay, all righty,
on Zoom.
all right. Anybody else? Because we can schedule these or we can, so let me know if there's a group, like if I need to do something like starting at 4, then that means I would meet with Kat at 3:30. What do we need? Does everybody feel like they have what they need?
Do we feel overwhelmed and sinking in the ocean very, very quickly, like looking for the Titanic submersible right now? Yes.
Just take away all the other things in your life so that, and that's what I can do to help.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay, all right. You want me to come over and babysit? No. That's
Yeah, I
all,
have been in
that's
right
what
now.
I
You
can
need
do to
to
help.
babysit my class. Yeah.
Yeah, I can show up at your family party at the beach on the weekend, so you don't have to go. Okay. That's what I can do to help. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do Kat. Does anybody else want some time? I do have some time. So class will start at 4:30. I don't know why that light's coming in so funny there.
So my slot is 3:30, you said?
Let's do you at 3:30.
Okay, thank
Does
you.
anybody else want a meeting?
I will email you. I think I need to make more progress on my project to see if I have any questions come up.
Oh, okay. So I'll meet with Kat and maybe we have to meet, have some time to work on it first and then maybe. So the project is due like next week. So next week on Tuesday, I'm hoping you can present. You may not have it all the way done. You just give us like kind of a brief, like a brief presentation. And then the plans actually due on Thursday. So we have Zoom on Tuesday, plans due on Thursday. Mary, email me because if we need to meet like Monday or something, Monday or Tuesday, you can let me know. Anybody else as well?
Thank you.
If anybody else needs to meet on Thursday, so I've got Kat at 3:30. Anybody else need to meet like at 4? No?
Can I meet at 4 on Thursday, you said?
Okay. Kat goes 3:30 to 4. And then we're going to do Barbara from 4 to 4:30, okay? That sounds good. Unless you think, do you need more time than a half hour?
I don't know. I'm in the process of putting my project together and I need to work on it more.
Yeah, okay. Let's just do a half hour for now, and then if we need more follow-up, we can. How's that?
Okay.
I think I'll need a follow-up session too, probably, because I haven't made much progress on this assignment, to be very honest with you. Thursday is like to kind of start asking you a little bit more questions to get the
Okay,
things organized. And then, so I don't have anything concrete to show you, or I
oh,
don't have
that's
any
fine.
specific questions just yet.
So Thursday will be, something to think of. We'll just get you started. And then hopefully, if we have more questions later, that's okay too.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll be great. Thank you.
And hopefully I get a bunch of your papers done tomorrow. In between, a whole bunch of other stuff. I want those papers done. Okay, and the only assignment with respect to the next, oh boy. I'm thinking, so the last one was supposed to be a forum. This
Yeah.
last one, but honestly, with you guys working on your projects, you probably don't have time to get together for a forum response, do you?
No.
Okay, you know what we're gonna do? It's just gonna be an in-class. Everybody will share something instead of the forum, okay? That will be that assignment. The forum
Thank
will be in, well, it's not really in person, but in class. Okay, so that's one thing that's off the plate. That'll be helpful, won't it? Eliminate one assignment. Yeah, we can eliminate that one. Okay. Hey, thank you.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
where would that forum question be, or you haven't posted it yet?
The forum question, let me see, did I post it already?
It went back to the forum that we have done already, so I was a bit confused on that.
Yeah, you already did one and I didn't open the second one yet, so don't worry about it.
Okay, mahalo.
We'll just have a discussion, that'll be. So that second one was going to be, the second forum was going to be where you got with your classmates and you were gonna discuss the education topic, but you know what? In class. No forum 2, take it off, consider it scratched, okay? Assignment scratched, one less assignment, okay? The difference is, the total percentage, there's one assignment gone, so it's okay. It's fine. And I don't think I had it added into your, I didn't have it added into the grade book already, so I think we're good. Because it gets added in after you do it, so. Yep, we're good. Consider it scratched. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. It's getting late. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay. Alrighty, bye-bye.
Thank you.